Hello internet viewers, I'm the fairly OddGamer. Well, it's June 23rd, which means a certain blue hedgehog we all know and love is turning 33 years old. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sonic the Hedgehog.
Hey gamer, long time no see.
Hey Sonic, glad to have you back here again.
Thanks gamer. So which game should we talk about?
Glad you asked, Sonic. Let me see which of your games I haven't reviewed yet. Hey Sonic! How about this one? Sonic Unleashed.
Isn't that the Wii version, gamer? I'm pretty sure you've played that one before.
Yeah, but it's been years since I last played it.
I see. Well, how about giving the Xbox 360 version a try? That's the one that most people seem to really enjoy.
That's actually not a bad idea. Let's do it! But first, a little history. After the atrocity that was Sonic's 50th anniversary, aside from a couple of games depending on who you ask, as well as Sonic and the Secret Rings, Sega and Sonic Team decided to make a game that not only highlights speed and platforming, but also breaks new grounds in regard to game genres. And in 2008, we got Sonic Unleashed, or rather Sonic World Adventure as it was called in Japan. Speaking of which, Sonic Unleashed started early development as Sonic Adventure 3, I'm not kidding. However, the development team began to introduce new innovations to separate from the adventure games, so they decided on the title we know today, Sonic Unleashed. This game is a mix between high-speed platforming as Sonic, as well as hack-and-slash platforming as Sonic's new transformation for the game, the Werehog. My introduction to the game was from a commercial on television where a kid in his living room was playing the Sonic stages of the game, but would transform into a werewolf himself during the Werehog stages. There are two different versions of the game released, one for the Xbox 360 and PS3, and another version for the Nintendo Wii and PS2. But because I didn't have an Xbox or PlayStation system at the time, I was only able to play the game via the Wii version. But even then, I still enjoyed it and even managed to beat it at one point. But nowadays, I own an Xbox 360 as well as an Xbox One, which means I can finally play the Xbox 360 version. But seeing this game has elements of combat, I wonder if there's someone who can help me with this game. I got it!
Meanwhile...
Wait, what? Hey, that's
Hello, Seth.
Lucas? What are you doing here?
Well, considering that you are a Sonic fan and have experience with combat in video games, I'm just letting you know that I'm finally playing Sonic Unleashed.
Oh, really? But are you playing the Xbox 360 version this time?
Why, yes. Yes, I am. In fact, Sonic suggested that to me earlier.
Alright then. If that's the case, I'm going to join you for this one, and here's why. Sonic Unleashed was actually my very first 3D Sonic game. At the time, the only Sonic games I played back then were the original Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic Rush. But then one day, I walked into a Target and saw that there was a demo for a new Sonic game at the time, and that game was Sonic Unleashed. And back when I first played that demo, I was blown away by just how fast Sonic moved in that game. I already wanted the game, but I unfortunately didn't have an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 at the time, so I was stuck with the Nintendo Wii version for a little while. But after finally getting an Xbox 360 for Christmas in 2011, alongside Sonic Generations of course, I finally had the means to play one of the coolest Sonic games out there. My overall thoughts on the game, however, have been scattered for the longest time because of my unfortunate exposure to the minefield that is the Sonic fanbase. But after finally collecting my thoughts, I was finally able to decide that this is indeed one of my favorite Sonic games. So yeah, I definitely have a lot to say about this game.
Okay then, with that being said, let's talk about Sonic Unleashed for the Xbox 360.
You're still holding the Wii version.
I'll take care of that. Here you go, gamer.
Thanks, Sonic. So does this game still hold up after over 15 years? Let's find out. For starters, we actually have an orchestral theme, the World Adventure. And yeah, there are a couple of vocal themes in this game, but we'll get to those later. Or rather, one of them later, because if you stay on the title string long enough, a trailer of the game plays while we listen to Endless Possibilities sung by Joyride of Bowling for Soup. While yes, he is the current voice of Chuck E. Cheese, both of us mostly remember him for his work on a Disney Channel show called Phineas and Ferb. But anyway, we start a new game, and already we're in the one place that has been corrupted by capitalism. Space! And can I just say right now that this CGI cutscene looks amazing? Because it does.
The game begins with Sonic absolutely destroying the majority of Dr. Eggman's fleet of battleships while doing what he does best, going super fast. This is still one of the coolest openings of any Sonic game by far, purely for the spectacle alone. After briefly getting caught by Eggman, Sonic then transforms into Super Sonic and destroys Eggman's mech, causing him to start flying away in his Eggmobile. Super Sonic manages to chase him to this room here, in which Dr. Eggman then decides to pull a Dr. Wily.
I'm sorry. Really, look, go easy on me. I'll turn over a new leaf, I swear. Just give me a chance.
Well, this is new. Showing remorse, Eggman? If you played nice, I wouldn't have to break all your toys.
Unsurprisingly though, it's of course another trap. Dr. Eggman then rips the Chaos Emeralds right out of Super Sonic and uses their energy to fire this giant laser into the planet below, causing not only the planet to break apart, but also causing a large dark entity to rise out of the planet.
Also, Sonic makes this face, but at least it's better than the prototype version. Yeesh.
As the dark entity rises out of the planet, Sonic then starts to transform into a werewolf version of himself known as the Werehog. More on that later. Not only that, but all of the Chaos Emeralds get completely drained of their power. Dr. Eggman then launches Sonic out of his station alongside the powerless Chaos Emeralds down to the planet below.
With a title card to boot. But considering it's not the first time this has happened, Sonic easily survives this. Some glowing energy manages to envelope Sonic before then dropping him down to the ground below. Sonic then gets back up as he comes across a small flying creature who literally doesn't remember his own name.
Huh? What is my name? I don't know! I can't remember!
What? You forgot who you are?
Yup. I remember something falling from the sky, and everything just going all white. And then nothing. I can't remember a thing past that.
Uh-oh. Did I fall on him?
It was an accident!
But thankfully, Sonic decides to help this creature find his lost memories. As the sun rises, Sonic then transforms back to his usual self as we start the first level of the game, Windmill Isle Act 1. It's a very short and easy level that mostly serves to help you get used to the new controls. Use the control stick to move, A to jump, and X use the homing attack or even boost. And at some points, you can perform the quick step with the left and right bumpers. Whenever you defeat enemies, you gain experience via small 3D diamonds that you can use to level up Sonic's stats. Other than that, you collect rings, run through checkpoints, defeat enemies, and reach the goal ring at the end of the level. And like the previous Sonic games, you're then ranked based on your overall score, with an S rank being the highest and an E rank being the lowest. After finishing the stage and getting ranked, you are then given the option to level up Sonic's stats with the experience you gain from playing the stage. After finishing this stage, we are then taken to the first area of the game, Apatos. It's here where Sonic decides to nickname the small creature Chip due to his fondness of a chocolate chip sundae supreme made by a local ice cream vendor.
Chip?
Gotta call you something, don't I? What do you think?
Yeah, Chip! Chip! I love it! Yum!
Now what do you say we start asking around and see if anybody here knows you?
Okay.
And that's exactly what he does as we explore Apatos, the first hub world of the game. It's here we can talk to people, even though one of them shares my actual name, buy some things at a shop, or enter the level select area in the hub world via this portal with a sun and moon on it. One level select area, you can find the levels via these glowing pedestals, I think, that Sonic can stand on. It's here we're taken to the next level, Windmill Isle Act 2.
Unlike Act 1, this is more of a full level, and now would be a good time to talk about the boost mechanics.
By the way, this is the first 3D Sonic game to have the boost mechanic, which debuted in Sonic Rush 3 years prior.
Whenever Sonic collects rings, they will fill up this boost meter on the bottom left corner. By holding the X button down, Sonic will boost and not only move much faster, but he can also run over most enemies. And that being said, this is by far the fastest that Sonic has ever moved during gameplay. At least, at the time anyway. When I first played this game, I was blown away by just how fast Sonic could move. It's like he was a roller coaster that I got to control. Because of this speed, Sonic stages are just one awesome high-speed thrill ride that's almost always a great time.
It's also the first level where grind rails are back, though thankfully you don't need to balance Sonic to stay on them. On top of that, you now have dedicated buttons for switching rails, in the case of this game, the left and right bumpers. Speaking of buttons, there's also quick time events where you have to press the correct buttons in the correct order, otherwise Sonic will fall down, sometimes into a bottomless pit.
This is also the first Sonic game that switches between a 3D perspective and a 2D perspective. While there is a lot of 3D gameplay to go around, there are some parts of the game that will switch to a 2D perspective, in which Sonic can only move left and right. Now, while I'm certainly tired of this trope in Sonic games nowadays, I think it's fairly harmless in this game since it was the first Sonic game to really do this. and it also helps that the 2D sections don't overstay their welcome, unlike another Sonic game that was released 2 years later.
As someone who's played that game before, I can understand why.
After finishing this awesome level, the sun starts to go down. We then see Sonic once again transform into the Werehog.
Whoa! Mr. Monster Guy is back!
So when the sun goes down, I turn into this?
Are you okay, Sonic?
I'm fine. I just need to be careful who sees me like this.
It's here where we find out that Sonic's Werehog form has arms that can stretch a long distance.
Kinda similar to some superheroes that I know of.
We then begin the nighttime version of Windmill Isle Act 1, this time as the Werehog. Whenever Sonic is in this form, he is nowhere near as fast as he is normally. In fact, I like to think he's about as fast as Super Mario while in this form. And instead of focusing on speed, the Werehog's gameplay is all about combat. Basically a mix between platforming and hack-and-slash action. But instead of playing like Devil May Cry, which I personally think fits Sonic better, the Werehog instead plays more like God of War. You have two types of attack buttons: hook attacks, which are done with the X button, and straight attacks, which are done with the Y button. You can even mix the two attacks together to perform different combos, like this attack called the Shoryuken, which is basically the Shoryuken from Street Fighter.
By pressing B at close range to an enemy, you can pick up an enemy, and mashing B multiple times lets the Werehog slam said enemy around like the Hulk. Die, 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 die.
However, most of the really cool looking attacks need to be unlocked by collecting enough experience and leveling up the combo stats for the Werehog. You can also fill up this blue meter, allowing Sonic to unleash his true power, in which he's not only much faster and more powerful, but he also becomes invincible.
I am invincible!
Whenever an enemy is low on health, you can initiate a QuickTime event to not only finish the enemy off, but also gain some bonus points. And you're gonna want to do that a lot if you want the S rank. While exploring the stage, Sonic can also grab onto ledges and poles with his stretchy arms. Though here's a tip: always keep the B button held down to grab said ledge or poles whenever Sonic gets near them while in midair. That way he's more likely to grab them.
Unlike Sonic's normal form, the Werehog actually has a health meter. If you're low on health, simply grab some rings to restore your lost health. There's also power-ups that can fully restore your health or unleash meter, as well as an increase in attack and or defense. There are also some levels where Sonic needs to grab these jewels and then place them onto the correct pedestal in order to progress. Just like Sonic Adventure.
And similar to God of War, there will be times where you need to mash the B button in order for Sonic to open this door or pull this switch to progress.
While I do enjoy the basic mechanics of the Werehog stages, there's just one or two things that seem to be out of reach. There have been times in which I swear I was holding the B button as previously mentioned by Seth, but Sonic wouldn't grab onto it. And why is that? Because Sonic will only grab on something if the green reticle is highlighting the thing you want Sonic to grab. There are also times in which Sonic has to swing on poles and even tightrope his way through balance beams. They're not bad at first, but trust us, they'll get much worse later on.
I personally like the Werehog's gameplay for the most part because I enjoy the different combos and other moves that he has. But with that being said, I only have two real problems with these stages. For starters, some of them go on for way too long. It's not so bad for most action games, but this is a Sonic game, and levels in Sonic games should not go on for longer than 10 minutes. And secondly, my other big problem with the Werehog is the music that plays every time you encounter some enemies. The actual level music for the Werehog stages are great, but no matter what level you're playing, every time you start fighting an enemy, you always have to listen to da 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 da, and it gets very annoying always hearing those first four notes. Even Devil May Cry didn't have that problem because those games at least had multiple different battle themes instead of just one. Heck, Kingdom Hearts actually has a unique battle theme for every world you visit, so I don't understand this game's excuse. And sure, you could turn off the music in the game's options menu, but then you won't get to hear those really good stage themes. More on the music later. That being said, I really love this stock sound effect that plays whenever Sonic breaks this type of object. I don't know why, but I always get a small laugh out of that sound.
One thing we never talked about previously is that you can also collect certain items like artwork via books and music via record discs. Oftentimes you have to defeat giant Gaia monsters which serve as mini-bosses. Whenever you encounter one of them, quickly transition to Unleash mode and brutally attack the giant monster. And just like regular Sonic, the level ends by running to the goal ring and you'll also be ranked based on your overall score. Also, it's best to use your experience points to level up the Werehog as much as possible, primarily your health and strength.
It's here where Sonic finally runs into his best friend, Miles Tails Prower.
Hey, Tails.
Sonic?
What are you doing out here?
Sonic, is that really you? That's a new look. What happened?
You know me. Never a dull moment.
Want some chocolate?
Thanks.
So after Sonic explains to Tails what just happened, Tails then informs Sonic that he knows someone that may have an idea about what's going on. That person being Professor Pickle, located in Spagonia. Sonic then jumps aboard the tornado and the duo head off to Spagonia. But before that, we now have a tornado stage. Unlike Sonic Adventure, in which it was an on-rail shooter, these stages are literally nothing but a giant QuickTime event. And it's also where I discovered that I'm not very good at QuickTime events. The reason why I was able to do them in Star Force: The Force Unleashed was because you can never lose most of them. But here, messing up will eventually result in having to start over. As a result, I decided to cheat the mission by taking advantage of the pause button, which gives me more than enough time to figure out the correct buttons to press. You can even get an achievement for clearing the stage without taking damage. After reaching Spagonia, Sonic and Tails then find out that Professor Pickle was kidnapped by Dr. Eggman.
It was a little bit before the tremors hit. This old man showed up with a whole pack of robots. They carried poor Professor Pickle off, lab data and all.
We've got to go help that professor guy out, and fast. If he got kidnapped that long ago, he's got to be real hungry by now. And if I was that hungry, I don't know how long I would last. I'd rather be dead.
I don't know why, but this scene always makes me laugh.
As a result, the group heads off to another continent, this one being Missouri. We then begin the nighttime version of the level, Savannah Citadel. To be honest though, I personally don't have much to say about this level specifically.
I mean, it is here where Sonic can first push and pull blocks to a switch to keep a door open.
Oh yeah, because Kratos did that as well in God of War.
Oh, and Sonic can also throw enemies at targets as well as hop on enemies that fly. After finishing the stage, we finally rescue Professor Pickle, who also happens to be a food critic.
How dare they call this culinary concoction food? Look here, do you see this sorry excuse for a sandwich? The bread should be no less than 3/4 of an inch thick. Upon it, 1 tablespoon of mayonnaise and a pinch of black pepper. The contents, fresh cucumber, sliced thinly, if you please. Am I quite right, Tails?
I know I learned something here today.
Professor, it's good to see you haven't changed.
After breaking Professor Pickle out of his cell and grabbing some important documents, the group then heads back to Spagonia to learn more about what's happening to the planet. Right after Chip offers chocolate to Professor Pickle. Yeah, this is the running gag of this game. As returning to Spagonia, Professor Pickle explains that the documents they required are known as the Gaia manuscripts. Oh, so that's what Dr. Eggman was talking about in the beginning of the game. It turns out that the creature that emerged from the planet is a being known as Dark Gaia. But because Dr. Eggman woke up prematurely, it's not fully awakened yet, giving the game some time to restore the planet. Professor Pickle then tells Sonic that he needs to travel to every temple listed in the Gaia manuscripts and return power to the Chaos Emeralds, which will also put the planet back together. And Sonic's first stop is Missouri, where Eggman tries to threaten the village with a whole pack of robots.
Who are you?
Fear not, my good villagers. If you all behave, I won't have to do anything nasty. All you need to do is tell me where the Temple of Gaia is.
We're not telling you anything!
Alright, this is also the first game that introduces Orbot. I know it's actually called SA-55 in this game, but come on, it's pretty much the beta version of Orbot. Anyway, Sonic manages to stop Dr. Eggman from threatening the village.
This is also where we get to hear one of my favorite lines from Sonic in this game.
Yo, Eggman! Thanks for that little skydiving adventure the other day.
I should have known you'd still be alive, you stubborn little hedgehog.
Eggman then manages to retreat, with Sonic eventually giving chase, and it takes us to the daytime version of Savannah Citadel.
This level introduces one of my personal favorite moves that Sonic can perform, drifting.
Deja vu, I just been in this place before.
I just really love seeing Sonic slide through a turn while keeping the speed going. It's one of the coolest maneuvers I've ever seen him do. I also like that he even makes a tire squeal noise like a car while drifting. But yeah, this level is really awesome.
Also, I can't help but notice that there's something familiar about the stage's theme.
Feeling good.
After finishing the stage, Sonic then finally manages to catch up to Eggman as he unveils his newest creation, the Egg Beetle. All you have to do is defeat the cockpit, whether by boosting into it while his claws are not guarding it, or just using the homing attack. Oh, and whenever Sonic defeats a boss, he always has a different witty remark. In the case of the Egg Beetle,
Ha! Same as ever, all bark and no bite!
After defeating the Egg Beetle, Sonic and Chip finally reach the first Gaia Temple. Sonic then places one of the Chaos Emeralds on this pedestal and returns power back to it while also restoring the first piece of the planet.
A planet-sized jigsaw puzzle? Sounds like a great excuse to see the world.
This takes us to the next continent, Holoska.
it's here that I like to mention that some of the items you can purchase as shops are food that you can feed to Sonic or Chip. If you feed it to Sonic, he'll simply gain experience depending on the food. But if you give it to Chip, he'll simply comment on the food you gave him depending on the food. For example, if you give Chip some canned horror, he'll say, well, this.
Whoa, Chip! Watch your language!
As you enter the level select area, we then gain access to a new upgrade for Sonic, these metallic cleats called Stomping Shoes. They give Sonic the ability to stomp while in midair. This can be used as either an attack, a purpose to land on the ground, or to activate these pressure switches that require 3 stomps.
Anyway, we then get to play one of my favorite levels in the game, Cool Edge. This level is indeed cool, both figuratively and literally, not just because of the open space that Sonic can run through, but also the music. This is easily my favorite stage theme in the entire game, and the remix that I got in Team Sonic Racing sounds even better. But yeah, I really love this stage.
This is the first level where you have Sonic riding a bobsled and running on water, which at points you'll have to do because Sonic dies as soon as he starts sinking. After finishing Cool Edge, you then head back to Spagonia and suddenly Amy! Unfortunately, she doesn't recognize them as Sonic goes down the dumps.
I actually kind of feel bad for Sonic in this scene, to be honest.
Hey, you only look really scary, Sonic. Inside, you're the same as ever. I guarantee it, okay? Sonic, cheer up. Chocolate. Want some chocolate?
Anyway, we're then taken to the next level, Rooftop Run. The nighttime version, that is. To be honest, I actually think this Werehog stage is perfectly fine. That is, until this part where he climbs up this clock tower. The main problem with this section is that you start at the bottom and there is clearly a floor that you can stand on, but when you start to climb high enough, what was once safe ground is now considered a bottomless pit, just like the old Castlevania games.
Or Contra for that matter. I only died once while inside the clock tower, but I did manage to clear the outside clock tower section with ease. After clearing the stage, Tails will give Sonic and Chip a special camera to free any citizens corrupted by Dark Gaia. And right off the bat, we see a group of citizens acting strange.
Hey, what's the big idea?
Ooh, look at that! I really know how to dance!
Come on, babe, let's dance the night away!
I don't know if it's just me, but why does the assistant sound like Hux?
Really, dude? I do not sound like that!
Thanks to Chip's flash photography, it exercises every Gaia monster from the possessed citizens and is up to Sonic to defeat said enemies, while under a time limit. After defeating the enemies, Sonic then retreats as Amy first encounters Professor Pickle. And thanks to the camera given to us by Tails, we've now unlocked the camera's flash. Whenever you approach a suspicious citizen, as determined by purple streams above his or her head, pressing Y will turn on the flash and immediately start a new side mission, Exorcism. You have to defeat every enemy in each area while under a time limit. If you manage to do so, then you'll save a citizen from possession.
One thing worth mentioning is that the only way to unlock new levels or continents is by talking to Professor Pickle, or at least that's the only way you'll know what continent to go to next. Do correct me in the comments if I got that wrong.
We then head over to the next continent, Chunan. Clearly not China at all.
At least you don't have to climb a ridiculously long stairway.
And it's here where we start the next level of the game, Dragon Road, or rather the nighttime version. It's also the first area where the Werehog can use these poles to spring himself over large gaps. With that said, the level itself is alright. The overall stack matches the China feel at night, especially the dragon in the background, but the same rules apply though.
This is actually one of the better night levels in the game, because I personally feel like this level doesn't overstay its welcome. The actual level music is pretty good, and I like the aesthetics. I also think these poles are pretty fun to use, because I really like seeing the Werehog curled up into a ball as he launches forward.
So after finishing that, we get the first Werehog boss fight of the game, the Dark Gaia Phoenix. Right after seeing a knocked out Elder. After throwing a water barrel into it, you have to quickly beat it up while also enduring a quick time event to lay down a critical attack. But what makes it annoying is that the Phoenix can also hurl out feather-like spikes towards you. Plus those starts can potentially destroy the water barrel you're holding.
This fight is more tedious than it is difficult. Having to throw the water barrels at the boss is pretty annoying because if you miss, you'll need to find another water barrel and wait for the boss to be within range again. As a result, this boss can be painfully slow at times.
After defeating the Dark Gaia Phoenix, Sonic manages to restore another Chaos Emerald inside another Gaia Temple. So, what happened to the Phoenix all this time? Well, it turns out that it was corrupted due to the planet splitting apart. But now that the temple's restored, the Phoenix has now returned to its normal self. We also get our first Eggman cutscene, which kind of reinstates what we already know about the status of Dark Gaia. Also, I don't know why, but I really like this line from Orbot.
Ergo, this is the repercussion of your hasty actions.
What was that?
Meanwhile, Sonic has back to Spagonia as we get another access to another ability for Sonic, the wall jump. After jumping into a wall, Sonic will be able to kick himself upward to higher areas, and can be repeated multiple times as long as there's a small enough gap between the two walls. And with that, we finally enter the daytime version of Rooftop Run. And yes, it's the same Rooftop Run that would make a return in Sonic Generations 3 years later. Here's the downside. Because this is my first time playing this level, I ended up getting a D rank.
Oh, I gotta try that again.
Which I should probably do at some point. Once you know what you're doing, the level is actually amazing. The amount of speed you can get from boosting and whatnot is pretty astronomical.
This is definitely one of my favorite levels in the game, purely because of how fast it is. I especially love drifting through these tight hairpin turns. Oh, and the music is great too.
After that, we then return to Chunan, this time during the day. And after entering the level select area, we then get access to another upgrade for Sonic, the Air Boost. This simply allows Sonic to boost in mid-air. But because it's mapped to the same button as the homing attack, it can potentially be hazardous and cause Sonic to boost into a bottomless pit. Anyway, on to the next daytime stage.
Sonic!
What?
Alright, now let's talk about the biggest problem with progression for Sonic Unleashed. So, hidden in every single hub world and stage are these Sun and Moon medals. What the game most likely won't tell you until it's already too late is that these medals are required in order to unlock new stages. So if you didn't collect enough of them while playing, you'll have to go back to previous hub worlds or stages in order to get enough of the required medals for unlocking the next stage.
I actually remember not having that issue in the Wii version. That's because these medals are actually rewarded to you depending on how fast you beat a certain level. Oh, and the hub worlds? More like hub menus. Nothing less and nothing more. So after collecting enough Sun medals, we now get to play the daytime version of Dragon Road. For a Sonic level, it's a good level despite the multiple deaths I had to endure during my first playthrough. I think it has something to do with these spinning platforms, but that's just me. However, I did like seeing Sonic launch to the sky via firecracker.
Pretty lights.
This is another one of my favorite levels in the game. Like the nighttime version, I really like the aesthetics, namely the mountains and waterfalls in the background. But what I really love about the level is the pure spectacle of Sonic running super fast on what's basically the Great Wall of China. So yeah, great level.
So, how did I do on this level? No! What? At least the music is pretty humorous. It sounds like band practice gone wrong.
This is actually the very last Sonic game to have an E rank, by the way.
So after that laughable performance, we then head back to Spagonia to fight the next daytime boss, the Egg Devil Ray. While it does have lasers and projectiles, Sonic can defeat the same way as the Egg Beetle, after destroying his shield of course.
This is actually one of the easiest boss fights in the game. If you're good enough, you can constantly boost into him in order to damage him. Just be careful not to run into his electric force field.
Not a bad toy, but playtime's over, pal.
And you know what happens next. Gaia Temple, Chaos Emerald restored, and content restored. Done and done. We then return to Alaska at night. And then we play Cool Edge at night. Ah! I fell into a bottomless pit at night.
Night, 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 night.
To be fair, this is one of the more difficult night levels in the game. The enemies themselves aren't too bad, but the platforming is definitely tricky. Like these sections where Sonic needs to jump after sliding down this ice slope, or when he needs to jump from a crumbling icicle to another crumbling icicle as fast and as accurately as possible.
And while there are ice physics, they're not all present in this level. You can also pick up these fire robots to help melt the ice in order to progress through the level. It's also a level where I first had a dash jump. Oh yeah, did I mention? The Werehog can also dash in this game by pressing either the left or right trigger. But to be fair, his ground speed fares pretty well in this game. So after getting cooled off at night, we then fight another boss as the Werehog, the Dark Moray. While shielded, the Dark Moray spews out electrical projectiles that cause Sonic to freeze upon impact.
I was frozen today!
The way to defeat it is by picking up an ice canister and throwing at these dragon-like heads that pop up at the side of the pedestal. Defeating them causes the shield to lower, and you'll have to defeat the Moray in all three of its weak spots. One on the stomach, one on the back, and one on the top of its head. Unless you know what you're doing, you're gonna have trouble with this boss fight, especially when trying to destroy the weak spot on its head.
I think what you're supposed to do to attack his head is wait for him to stop spinning, then throw the freeze canister at him, and then attack the weak point on his head. Anyway, after defeating this boss, we restore another continent, as well as
the damn 4th Chaos Emerald.
Oh yeah, I forgot that it's his year right now.
His year?
Yeah, the Year of Shadow.
foreshadowing.
I get it.
That pun was unintentional, and I doubt the audience explains what I'm foreshadowing, but they will, eventually.
Back in Spagonia, Professor Pickle tells Sonic that the next temple lies in Shamar. However, he plans to join them because he has a research facility there. Meanwhile, in Eggman's Space Neo-like base, he decides to have the pieces of Dark Gaia come to him instead of having to gather them up himself.
A brilliant shift in perspective. An idea worthy of Dr. Eggman, super genius.
Your skill at self-aggrandizement is unparalleled.
Silence!
So Dr. Eggman commences Project Dark Gaia, still trying to complete his plans. Sonic catches Shamar as he finds Professor Pickle, who remains in Shamar throughout the rest of the game. After entering the level select area, we then get the final upgrade for Sonic, the Lightspeed Dash via Golden Light Speed Shoes. But unlike the previous game, the Lightspeed Dash is thankfully mapped to its own button. In this case, it's the Y button. After that, we move on to the next daytime stage, Arid Sands. And what's it like, you may ask? Well,
let me guess. In the words of Anakin Skywalker,
it's coarse and rough and irritating.
And it gets everywhere. Also, I didn't ask what it's like because I've been there before. Way too many times.
It isn't to fire, block pushing, and some difficult platforming. I don't really mind Arid Sands that much. The 3D sections were fine, but I wasn't very keen on the 2D sections, especially in the later half of the level.
While this level can be fun, this is personally my least favorite daytime stage, not counting the final stage, of course. The 3D sections are mostly pretty fun, but the other half of the 2D sections can be pretty slow if you don't know how to take the higher pathways.
Oh, and by the way, Professor Pickle also suggested that we visit Empire City, and here we are.
Huh. It definitely looks a lot more friendly than I remember.
No, not that Empire City. It's like Central Park in New York. And it's here where we have, in our opinion, the worst nighttime level in the entire game, Skyscraper Stamper. Oh boy, what do I have to say about this level? It has everything. Bottomless pitch, moving poles, bottomless pitch, buzzsaws, bottomless pitch, and let's not forget those balance beam sections from Windmill Isle. Yeah, remember those? Well, how about having some of them with spikes on the side, above bottomless pits? If Sonic manages to slip even once during these sections, he won't be able to climb back up. Boom, down one life. And if you thought that wasn't bad enough, let's talk about the mini-bosses. I can't even tell you how many times that Titan has knocked me into a bottomless pit, and I got several game overs as a result. In fact, here's a recreation of my reaction every time it happened. Seriously, did Sonic start suffering from the same curse as the Belmonts?
The Dark Gaia Titan has an attack where he jumps and slams on the ground to perform a shockwave. Problem is that the Titan simply jumping counts as an attack that can knock Sonic back even while unleashed. And if you try to immediately get up after getting hit by his jump, you'll then get knocked back again, this time by the shockwave that he produced after jumping. So here's a hint. If he knocks you back by jumping, don't get back up until the shockwave has already passed over Sonic. Trust me on that. Otherwise, you'll end up going through the same crap that Lucas just went through.
You're telling me.
So after clearing that nightmare of a level, we then come back to Empire City during the day. And I just want to say, it probably has my favorite level select area in the game, purely because I like doing these pointless drifts as Sonic. What can I say? I just really love this maneuver.
Also, I decided to check out some of the food in Empire City's shop. So I gave Chip this, the nuclear taco, which made Chip say, "Ah, water, 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 water."
Yeah, don't worry. I gave him some water after that.
What can I say? Chip's reactions to various foods can be pretty humorous.
Anyway, we then get to play the daytime version of Skyscraper Scamper. While the nighttime version is one of the worst levels in the game, the daytime version, at least in my opinion, is one of the best levels in the game. I just really love seeing Sonic run super fast across these city streets and drifting through these corners. That, and it's probably the closest I have to Sonic the Hedgehog being in a Need for Speed game.
Oh yeah, definitely better than its nighttime counterpart. It's like the equivalent of Speed Highway from Sonic Adventure 1. You know, minus the moving cars and the one helicopter. In fact, I think it has more realistic aesthetics. And man, does it feel good to have Sonic running around at high speeds in this stage. It's absolutely amazing. grinding. Oh, and before I move on, I should point out that both Empire City and even Apatos don't even have a Gaia temple. Not only that, but also Empire City is not even present in the Wii version. Anyway, we fly our way to a new continent, Adabat, and it's here we begin the nighttime version of said continent's level, Jungle Joyride. It's short in regard to the length of the level, and it's not a bad one at that. However, there are a couple things that were a bit annoying. First off, there are bee-like enemies that are difficult to attack. I then figured out the best way to defeat them is by slamming them again like the Hulk. But I swear I had some issues trying to get through these multiple waterfalls. Anytime you get hit by a waterfall, you'll get pushed into the water below, costing you a valuable life. It's also here where I discovered that you don't have to fight every enemy in this stage. You can just simply perform the Joestar family's secret technique. But like I said, not that bad.
This is definitely one of the better nighttime stages since it's much shorter than most of them, but I think I like Dragon Road's nighttime stage just a little more. Still, Jungle Joyride does have some pretty aesthetics. Also, when getting an S rank on a nighttime stage, we get to hear what is easily my favorite quote from Sonic's Werehog form, if only because it's basically a Devil May Cry quip.
Oh yeah, that's right, baby!
So after heading back to Shamar while collecting more moon medals, we now head to the nighttime version of Arid Sands. And at least it's not as bad as the one in Empire City. You have to defeat enemies as well as healing wizards that are pretty much self-explanatory. However, these healers are equipped with fire. So you have to extinguish the flames by picking up a water barrel and throwing it at the wizard before you deal an all-out attack. Otherwise, you'll be the one catching fire and you have to run to a body of shallow water to extinguish it immediately. Yes, the fire can get extinguished without the water eventually, but at the cost of losing some health. By the way, I forgot to mention that some of these levels end when you run into a Gaia Temple key instead of a goal ring. Well, during your first playthrough.
The first time I played Sonic Unleashed, this was my least favorite level in the game. Not just because of the fire wizards, but especially because of those hornet enemies. Remember when Lucas said earlier that they can be hard to attack? Well, that's because they'll just turn invincible during their attack animations, or even this dodging animation where they move up and down. Easily the worst enemy in the game by far. Also, be careful not to go up these stairs during your first playthrough, because not only is it optional, but it leads to a gauntlet of enemies that you'll need to fight in order to move on. If Sonic's stats are too low leveled, or you're just not good enough at the game, then it will cost you a life. Overall though, I find this level simply meh, personally. Not as bad as Skyscraper Scamper's nighttime level, but not by much in my opinion.
So after completing this monstrosity of a level, we then unlock another boss stage as the Werehog, the Dark Guardian. The overall premise is simple. You need to push these blocks to the other side to weaken the Guardian. However, it's best to defeat any enemy coming towards you and avoid any laser blasts from the Guardian itself. Not to mention that these Dark Gaia creatures can push said blocks back. Eventually defeat the Dark Guardian as the Werehog gets a funny line.
I know little girls who are better with a hammer than you! Well, one anyway!
So let's see, restore Gaia Temple, restore Chaos Emerald, restore the continent. 5 down, 2 to go. Anyway, back to Adabat where I can now play the daytime level. Or I would if I didn't need 17 more sun medals just to unlock it, because that's what we need in a Sonic game, grinding. No, not that grinding. Not only did I have to go back to previous stages just to get the required amount of sun medals, but I also had to search high and low for additional levels in the level select areas just to find more medals. Yes, this game has more than one daytime and nighttime stage for each continent. Well, most of them anyway.
These are basically challenge levels that mostly test your platforming skills. Some of them aren't so bad, while others can be very strict with the requirements for finishing the level.
Thankfully, once you collect a Sun or Moon medal, it's yours to keep no matter what. Heck, you don't even have to finish the stage to keep said medals. Just simply get the medals you need and leave the stage immediately after. And for the most part, I did use a guide for finding these medals via a YouTube video on my phone.
And I really don't blame you. Searching for the medals in the nighttime stages isn't so bad since they're much slower paced and encourage you to explore, but for the daytime stages, you're encouraged to move so fast that you're very likely to speed right past those missing medals. It's completely counterintuitive to the game's design.
Eventually I managed to collect enough sun medals via Grindfest, so I head back to Adabat. And now I can finally play the daytime version of Jungle Joyride. When I first started this level, I was having fun and enjoying the heck out of it. But when I finished it, this is what ended up happening.
Oh no!
Because I'm playing this game with an Xbox One, you'll experience a drop in frame rates on a few parts. I also had some trouble with one of the 2D sections, but other than that, it's not a bad level. At least it looks good.
Despite the awful frame drops on PS3, Xbox 360, and Xbox One, this is actually one of my favorite levels in the game. It's definitely one of the more challenging levels in the game, but I really love just how beautiful the level looks. and I always enjoy the parts when Sonic is running on water, at least while playing on an Xbox Series X anyway.
So after beating the level, Sonic then faces Eggman once again with the Egg Lancer. It's about the same as Egg Beetle despite some challenges here and there, but you can do some serious damage with a quick time event. Oh, do yourself a favor and don't jump while wall running, otherwise you'll fall off the wall costing you a life.
I don't have much to say about this fight other than the fact that I really like the camera angles for this fight. Really good spectacle.
But yeah, Sonic manages to beat the Egg Lancer. Upon reaching the temple, Chip feels scared for some bizarre reason, but they get the job done while Chip gets sucked into a wall where he's then summoned by an orb of light.
Messenger of day, of light, of rebirth. Sonic, I remember now. All of it.
So it turns out that Chip is actually like Gaia, the yin to Dark Gaia's yang, who's tasked to protect the planet from Dark Gaia. But because of what Eggman did at the beginning of the game, you know, the premature awakening, Dark Gaia broke apart, resulting in Chip's memory loss. And now that Chip has his memories back, he decides to go after Dark Gaia alone. But Sonic isn't willing to let him do that, so he decides to stick with him until the very end, just like good friends. However, before starting the final battle, I decided to grind for the maximum number of lives, 99 lives to be exact, because I've heard from many people how difficult the final level is. Why is that? More on that later. So after grinding for life max out, I head on back to Shamar and tell Tails that I'm ready to hop on board the tornado again. It's pretty much the same as the previous tornado level, but more difficult as well as a different background and a rematch against Ed Cauldron. After that, Sonic and Chip reach the final area of the game, Eggmanland. Yep, after 10 years of hardships, failed plans and developments in other games, he finally managed to build Eggmanland.
I'll never understand Eggman's tastes.
If you have any complaints, come deliver them to me in person. If you can, that is.
Ah, he's enjoying this way too much.
But Chip manages to find the last Gaia temple underneath Eggmanland, and it's up to Sonic to tear it down. This leads to what is easily the worst stage in the entire game, and arguably the most difficult stage in all Sonic's history, Eggmanland. If you thought the nighttime version of Skyscraper Stamper was bad, then wait until you play this level. It's got everything, and I mean everything. Bottomless pits, difficult rail grinding, platforming, laser gates, wall jumping, pipe bouncing, pushy blocks with Eggman's face on it, roller coasters, bobsleds, block stomping, leaps of faith, spinning blades, annoying mini bosses, and let's not forget the quick time events because there are a lot of them. If you fail in any quick time event, then you'll more than likely lose one of your important lives. Remember what I said earlier about maxing out on lives? This is why. And to prove that, here's how many lives I had before starting Eggmanland, and here's how many lives I had when I finished Eggmanland. 20 lives lost in total. But I know for a fact that I've lost more than 20 lives. So why does it show that? Well, because some checkpoints actually have an extra life box close by, like in the pipe before getting on the roller coaster. The developers knew that players would die a lot in certain sections of the level, which is why they added in multiple extra life boxes to the level. While it is forgiving, that doesn't change my opinion on how difficult this level is. So in order to figure out how many times I actually died in this level, here's a montage of all my deaths in Eggmanland. So as you can see, I've actually died 49 times throughout my first playthrough of this stage, almost half the number of maximum lives you can get. But on the bright side, I did get 29 extra lives in this level.
This stage is not only difficult, but it's also quite long. Furthermore, you actually switch between playing as both Sonic and his Werehog form throughout the stage. And with that being said, there are two sections of this stage I absolutely can't stand. For starters, I really hate this section here where you need to balance on these pipes. Not just because Sonic doesn't have a drop shadow in this level, but because of the camera. Sometimes you can control the camera freely, but other times it's locked to a very specific angle, and those camera angles really suck. If you don't want to fall off, you should try to go as slowly and safely as possible. I know this is a Sonic game, but this is one of the few times in the series where you're punished for going fast. The other section I really hate is during the last Werehog section. The problem is, again, the camera. You basically need to take a leap of faith because the camera isn't showing exactly where you need to land. In fact, most first-time players won't know where they need to land until it's already too late.
He's right, you know. That's exactly what happened to me as well.
Also, screw these enemies that constantly shoot projectiles at you. It doesn't help that you need to bounce off of them just to progress. When I first played this stage, it took me 68 minutes and 46 seconds just to finish it. Nowadays, I can finish it in under 20 minutes and even get an S rank, but that's only because of just how many times I've replayed this stage.
Well, Sonic, how did it feel to be in Eggmanland?
I don't even want to think about it, gamer.
I feel your pain. So after beating that overwhelming gauntlet of a level, Sonic and Chip finally managed to restore the 7th and final Chaos Emerald. But just after they walk out of the Gaia Temple, Dr. Eggman suddenly appears with a new creation, the Ultra Hyper Prototype 1, or just the Ed Dragoon. Without a doubt the easiest boss of the entire game. At least that's what I think anyway. You have to avoid shooting projectiles and electrical barriers as you bash and smash these green lights. That's the weak spot. And after a few quick time events, the Ed Dragoon is finally defeated.
This fight may be easy, but I really love seeing Sonic completely destroy it. I especially love the part when Sonic grabs the Eggmobile and throws it into space.
But it's not over yet, because Dark Gaia is now fully awakened. Oh look, a Sega Dreamcast. Wait, is that Sonic Adventure 2? But I reviewed that game over 3 years ago. Anyway, Dr. Eggman gets knocked away by one of Dark Gaia's tentacles. Not only that, but Dark Gaia also completely rips the Werehog form out of Sonic, never to be seen again.
Not counting mobile games, that is.
But before he can attack again, Chip activates his own power to summon all the Gaia Temples as he transforms into a Gaia Temple Megazord. By the way, I'm definitely looking forward to the new Power Rangers game.
This thing is actually called the Gaia Colossus, and you control it 3 times throughout the fight against Dark Gaia. However, it moves very slowly. It even requires some wind-up just to throw a punch. The main goal for these sections is to get to Dark Gaia while avoiding, blocking, or destroying these flaming rocks that he throws at you. That being said, here's a hint that most people don't know about the Gaia Colossus. You can actually hold down the attack button just to keep a punch ready, and then throw a punch by releasing the attack button. As soon as Dark Gaia throws a rock at you, try holding down the attack button immediately, and only release it when the rocks are close enough to you. However, there's one attack that simply can't be avoided, and that's this laser here. When that happens, you need to make sure you're blocking it, otherwise you'll take far more damage than necessary. But it doesn't stop there. After reaching Dark Gaia, you need to input another QuickTime event, and after that, you'll take control of Sonic to chase after Dark Gaia's weak spot. Personally, I feel like these sections are much harder than the Gaia Colossus sections. Not only because Dark Gaia still throws a lot at you, but you also have a time limit to reach Dark Gaia's weak spot. If you run out of time, it'll cost you a life, and you'll have to redo that section again. And after hitting Dark Gaia's weak spot, you'll need to do 2 more of both the Gaia Colossus and Sonic sections in order to stop him.
The Gaia Colossus sections aren't that bad, but I feel like you have to time your punch windups perfectly for these rocks. And yeah, the laser that Dark Gaia blasts at you is an absolute pain because you have to block and move out of harm's way. Oh, and before I forget, the Gaia Colossus will start further away from Dark Gaia the more times you encounter it. But honestly, I've had more problems with the Sonic section. You have to quickly make your way to Dark Gaia, or rather one of its eyes, and homing attack it multiple times. Here's the thing though, you're under a time limit, there's tentacles to avoid, and worse than them all, there's projectiles, as if there wasn't enough obstacles to avoid already. Basically, you have to make sure that Sonic is constantly moving. If you ever get stopped by any obstacle that I mentioned, then you are completely screwed. But thankfully, you don't have to do the Gaia Colossus section again. With that being said, I'm not a big fan of this fight. Well, in the HD version anyway. I think it's handled much better than the Wii version. The Gaia Colossus section is pretty much punch-out, and you can only do that 1 time rather than 3. As for the Sonic section, they're pretty much the same as the HD version. the only difference being you have to do them back to back to back. So after taking out the last of Dark Gaia's eyes, we finally defeat Dark Gaia. Or so we think. Dark Gaia releases a lot of dark energy that not only envelops the entire planet, but also regains its true form. And this leads to what's probably the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in a Sonic game.
What is it, gamer?
Actually, Sonic, the real question is, what horrible, disgusting abomination am I looking at?
Enter Perfect Dark Gaia, the final boss of the entire game. Gathering up the Chaos Emerald, Sonic transforms into Super Sonic to finally take this abomination head-on. Or he would, if it weren't for the shield in the way. The fight begins with Super Sonic dashing towards Perfect Dark Gaia while trying to collect rings. Unlike every other Sonic game, Super Sonic has a life bar in this game, and it can be refilled by collecting rings. And to be honest, that's actually the main reason why I don't like this fight very much. The goal is to dash into these Dark Gaia snakes while avoiding these asteroids and other attacks that Perfect Dark Gaia throws at you. But what makes this fight really annoying is that those snakes will retreat behind the shield like the cowards they are, so you need to either hunt down another snake outside the shield, or wait for the other one to come back out. Also, screw that stupid laser attack. It always seems to happen when you least expect it because you're so busy trying to dodge everything else.
You know what that boss fight reminds me of? Nights into Dreams. I haven't played it yet, but at least I know about it. While there's technically no paralooping in this fight, the way I'm dashing into these snake heads almost feels like a spin dash. No, not that spin dash. This spin dash.
Like the battle with normal Dark Gaia, I think the supersonic part is more fun in the Wii version. It's like the Gaia Colossus section from the Wii version, only you're supersonic.
So after getting rid of Perfect Dark Gaia's shield, the fight ends with a long enduring quick time event, which includes mashing the X button 60 times. Supersonic then dashes into Perfect Dark Gaia's eye, completely finishing him off. Dark Gaia then melts into the planet via lava as Supersonic's power expires, only to be saved by Chip.
Meanwhile, with Dr. Eggman...
Pleasant morning, wouldn't you say, Doctor? You can simply begin your plans anew. Even if all of your efforts this last time were utterly wasted, even if it was a complete and utter humiliating loss, even the most pathetic loser in all the world will surely have his chance
As the entire world celebrates Dark Gaia's defeat, Chip, now as a ghost, rescues Sonic by throwing him up to the surface as he remains behind inside the planet.
Even without wings, I can still fly! Right?
Sonic manages to end up back on Windmill Isle, and he finds Chip's necklace as a final memento. After that, Sonic runs off in search of a new adventure as Tails begins to fly by, ending Sonic Unleashed.
And we get to hear not one, but two vocal themes as well as the last portion of the Orchestral World Adventure theme. Besides Endless Possibility as previously mentioned, the other vocal track that plays is Dear My Friend by Brent Cash. I also love seeing the photo images that I assume were taken by Sonic and Chip, including the last one that was literally taken from a cutscene. And that concludes the story mode for this game. Now, on to the extra content! For starters, there are some extra town missions you can partake in, whether as Sonic or the Werehog. For example, there's a mission in Spagonia that involves Sonic skydiving while trying to tag these two ghosts. And by the way, these are the same ghosts that are featured in Night of the Werehog, a fully CG animated short film created as a tie-in for this game. It's also worth mentioning that once you finish the game, you'll be able to travel to Eggmanland's hub world. And yes, this area does have a shop with its own food.
And the food is terrible, according to Chip.
There's also areas where you encounter a mysterious youth named Wintos, accompanied with a child puppet. He's a traveling salesman that can let you buy stuff from him. And because you'll more than likely not see him again after, it's best to buy as much as you can from him. And speaking of the Chow, there's an extra mission in Spagonia that I forgot to mention earlier. For this mission, you have to find all 10 Chows while under a time limit. If at any point you die, then you have to start that level all over again. However, if you find all 10 Chows, then every Chow will swarm around Sonic.
I can't help but feel like that mission was a nod to Sonic Advance 3.
And that just leaves one final side element of the game, the hot dog missions.
The hot dog missions feature various trials that require Sonic to play a stage under very specific conditions. During the day, there are time trials, battle trials, and ring trials. The battle trials require Sonic to defeat a specific number of enemies. The ring trials require Sonic to collect enough rings, and the time trials are pretty self-explanatory. At night, there are only time trials and survival trials. The survival trials require finishing the stage with a low amount of health. But one major annoyance that applies to every trial no matter what time is that you need to also finish the stage without dying. So if you manage to defeat enough enemies in the battle trial but fell down a pit near the end of the stage, you need to do that all over again. And yes, that also includes Eggmanland, which, need I remind you, can take up to 20 minutes just to finish. And the funny thing is, Eggmanland only has time trials, and they give you way more than enough time, even on the hardest trial. But that's not the challenge. The challenge is finishing Eggmanland without dying! And you have to do it 3 times in order to get that annoying achievement/trophy. As someone who actually platinumed the PS3 version, as well as getting all of the achievements in the Xbox 360 version, this was easily the worst part of the game for me. Never again, unless they somehow bring them back for a modern remaster of the game. Ugh.
Man, I sure could use a chili dog right now. So, what'd you guys think of Sonic Unleashed?
Well, as someone who's familiar with the Wii version, I think the HD version's alright. I will say right now that this is one of the most difficult games I've ever played. First and foremost, I love the overall graphics. It's visually appealing, the levels look amazing, and the hub worlds do a good job of matching the style of the levels each area is based on. This game is definitely worth seeing night and day, and yes, the pun was intentional. As for the overall gameplay, it's pretty much hit and miss. Some of the Sonic levels are incredible to play through, especially Rooftop Run and Skyscraper Stamper. I definitely feel the high speed coming from this tiny blue hedgehog. Not a big fan of some of the platforming, but it's one of the key things of what has made Sonic a huge success over the years. The Werehog stages for the most part are just okay. I really like the combat system for the Werehog, and having him unleash is pretty cool because it makes him stronger and invincible at the same time. And it feels good to have the Werehog freely explore a stage, whether to find medals or any goodies you can find along the way. But the Werehog does have problems as well. I stated in previous videos that I don't like needless repetition, and having the sudden Werehog theme interruptions is definitely one of them. I want to hear the actual music play without any interruptions. I mean, the only exception is Eggmanland, but that should apply to every Werehog stage. And I swear there are times I wanted Sonic to grab onto a pole or ledge, except that I can't because the reticle wouldn't show up when I needed it to. And I always shiver in dread whenever I approach a balance beam, especially in Empire City and Eggmanland. Why Sonic has to balance on a beam completely eludes me. Going back to the music, Werehog theme aside, I absolutely love it. Some of my favorites include Rooftop Run both day and night, the orchestral themed World Adventure, Dear My Friend, which is overlooked in my opinion, and definitely Endless Possibility, whether it's the original version, the orchestral version as heard in the perfect Dark Gaia fight, or the many great covers of the song, like when Adrian Cohen performed it at the Sonic Symphony World Tour concert. In fact, both Seth and I attended that concert in Atlanta last year, and if you haven't attended it yet, then you definitely should. It was one of the best concerts, if not the best concert I've ever attended. Overall, Sonic Unleashed is an okay game, but even then, it was my first time playing the HD version. Perhaps if I played each stage multiple times, then I'll definitely get the hang of this game. So yeah, give it a try when you get a chance.
This game is one of the main reasons why I love Sonic the Hedgehog. I love the speed and maneuvers that Sonic can perform, and I enjoy almost every daytime stage in this game. As for the Werehog, I think the core gameplay is actually pretty fun. Maybe it's because I really love hack-and-slash action games, but I really like the various different combos that he can perform. And sure, the platforming is very hit and miss, and having only one battle theme is very repetitive, but I don't think it's enough to call the Werehog's gameplay bad. It's pretty alright if you ask me. Musically speaking, it's pretty good. Sonic Unleashed is not one of my favorite soundtracks in the series, but it definitely has music that I really love. My favorites being Cool Edge Day, Rooftop Run Day, and Endless Possibility. And graphically, it's arguably the best looking Sonic game ever made. The environments are very beautiful, the lighting is very good, and the level aesthetics are very unique. Overall, Sonic Unleashed is one of my favorite games in the series. It may have problems, but those problems aren't enough to bring the game down for me. If you're a Sonic fan and somehow haven't played this one yet, please give it a try, and I hope you enjoy it as well.
Well, Sonic, I hope you enjoyed your birthday today.
Sure did, gamer. In fact, the more I think about it, I always feel like Chip is by my side every day. Well, in spirit anyway.
Of course. See you later, Sonic.
So long, gamer. Oh, and tell your friend I said hi.
So long, Blue Hedgehog.
Sayonara, Zero. The Knight.
Anyway, thanks Seth for helping me out.
No problem. Now if you excuse me, I think I should really finish playing God of War.
Ugh.
No, the new one.
I have no idea how I feel about that. But just recently, I hit 2,000 subscribers because of you guys, and that makes me a happier man. So really, thank you all very much, and I hope you look forward to seeing new content. And as always, I'm the Fairly Odd Gamer, and I wish you all good luck the rest of your day or night, wherever you are. Take care, everyone.
Those Werehog moves were pretty cool, huh? Anyway, thanks so much for watching the video. And thanks for all the nice birthday wishes. Today's Patreon shoutouts are Luke Jeffers and Scarlet the Hedgehog. If you want a shoutout just like this, as well as access to a special Discord server and other cool bonuses, go support the channel on Patreon.
This is my escape.